Reaper of the Drifting Moon, also known as the Grim Reaper's Floating Moon. The story begins in broad daylight in a random village where Pyo Wol, a young orphan, was enjoying the amount of food he had gathered. Pyo Wol drifts from village to village, gathering what little he can to keep himself alive. At just 14, he has no home, no family, only the will to endure. But fate is cruel. While looking for shelter, he encounters a mysterious man. The man's suspicious smile makes him nervous. Before he can react, darkness engulfs him. When Pyo Wol awakens, he finds himself in absolute darkness. Confused, he blinked to make sure his eyes were open. He wondered if he had gone blind. But no, it is the room itself that is devoid of light. When he decides to get up, he realizes he can't move at all. Panic sets in. His limbs refuse to move, his strength completely drained. As the reality of his imprisonment sinks in, silent tears trail down his face. Why? Why was he taken? What had he done to deserve this? Then he recalls his last memories, when he comes across the mysterious man who called him useful. It must be him, but why? Why would he take an orphan with nothing to his name? Even though he's never wronged anyone, the simple fact that he wasn't dead yet meant to him that the man had another goal. Time loses meaning. Seconds, minutes, hours. He can no longer tell. He clings to his identity, repeating his name over and over. A desperate attempt to stay sane. My name is Pyo Wol. I am 14. My father's name is Pyo Inhak. My mother's name is Lee Seonhong. Again and again, until the words become his lifeline. But for how long? Because hunger gnaws at him. His body weakens further. He wonders if this is how he will die, either by starvation or of insanity. Is that the man's goal, to make him starve to death? Then something changes. A flicker of strength, barely noticeable at first. He can finally move. Even breathing has become easier. Not only does his strength gradually return, but so do his senses, allowing him to better identify his environment. He feels the cold floor, the damp smell, the rough texture of stone, the faint sound of water dripping nearby. Water. He must reach it. His body is weak, but his will is strong. He drags himself toward the sound, inch by inch. The closer he gets, the more desperate he becomes. He reaches out, feeling the jagged surface of the wall. Pain, a sharp sting. His fingers brush against something rough, cutting into his skin. As exhaustion takes hold, Pyo Wol collapses onto the cold, damp floor. His body is weak, his mind slipping. And then he sees something. A figure stands before him, a shadowy reflection of himself. Who is this? He wonders. The standing Pyo Wol speaks to him with scorn. Why are you trying so hard to survive? It's laughable. What's so great about your worthless life that you struggle so much? The voice is cold, taunting, echoing in the darkness. Just give up. If you surrender, you'll finally be at peace. The words press down on him like a heavy weight, but Pyo Wol doesn't believe them. Peace, he whispers. The standing Pyo Wol pauses. What? Will I really be at peace if I let it all go? His voice gains strength. I don't think so. Even in this hell, his resolve does not waver. I will survive. If I die without even stabbing the one who trapped me here, I won't ever be able to rest, not even in death. The standing Pyo Wol leans in, grinning. Revenge? Are you really going to take revenge? Without hesitation, Pyo Wol growls. Yes, you're not going to give up. Never. As the word rings out, the hallucination crouches beside him, smiling. Then, just like that, it vanishes. Reality returns. Pyo Wol blinks. Was that a dream? Or am I actually going insane? Panic threatens to consume him, but he forces himself to move. He struggles, but for the first time, he sits up. His body screams in protest, but he mutters to himself like a mantra. I have to survive. His hands brush against the stone wall, rough and uneven, but in one spot, something is different. Are these moss? Software edible? He doesn't care. In his condition, anything is food. He shoves it into his mouth. The bitter taste makes him gag, but he forces it down. I have to eat. I have to survive. I will survive no matter what it takes. Slowly, his strength returns. Enough to stand, enough to move. He then went around the room and deduced that the place is roughly a 3x3 yang space. As he explores the confines of his prison, something catches his attention. A sound. A heavy clank, metal shifting, an iron door with a small opening that let in a little light. It stabs into his eyes, blinding him after so long in the dark. This is an opportunity. He moves towards the door, shouting, "Over here! There's someone in here!" A shadow appears in the opening. A hand reaches through, placing something inside, a bowl. Then, just as quickly, the opening slams shut. The smell of food drifts up. Rotten fish, tea leaves, pork. Pyo Wol stares. Leftovers? The bowl is filled with scraps, bits and pieces from different meals, leftovers from at least 5 people. That means I'm not the only one here. His captors wouldn't go through the effort of building a prison like this just for him. There must be others, and if there are other prisoners, there must be at least 5 people managing them. His thoughts race. Just what is their goal? But for now, there's no time to wonder. He lifts the bowl, sniffing cautiously. Sichuan spices, the taste of pork. It doesn't matter what it is. He eats, even if it's just leftovers compared to moss. It's a feast, now that he had eaten and regained some strength. Pyo Wol refused to let himself wither away. Lying down, waiting for time to pass, it wasn't an option, so he trained. At first, his body resisted. His muscles were weak, his movements sluggish, but he forced himself. Push-ups or whatever he could manage in this confined space. Time became meaningless. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The routine never changed. The iron door would slide open just enough for a small bowl of food to be placed inside. No words, no explanation. But Pyo Wol did not waste his days. He adapted. The darkness that once suffocated him now felt familiar. He began to notice things, shapes, movements, life hiding in the shadows. So many insects live in a place like this. He watched them closely, curious. What kind of creatures could thrive in a world without light? Red-eyed, lurking in the shadows, coiling around his arm, fangs sank into his flesh, venom coursing through his veins like fire. He barely had time to react. The pain was instantaneous. His arms swelled as dark red lines spread under his skin. His breath became ragged, his vision hazy. The pain was unbearable. His whole body burned as if he were being torn apart from the inside. The next day, the routine resumed. But this time, he couldn't stand. The snake bite had left him weak. Still, he crawled to the door. He refused to starve. He refused to die. And in the shadows, the snake is watching, a predator observing its prey, waiting for the right moment. More time passed, and something changed. The pain faded. The swelling receded. His body recovered. More than that, he felt different. He could see, not just vague shapes, details. The textures of the stone. He saw the snake that bit him. Despite nearly dying from its venom, Pyo Wol was fascinated. He had heard stories. People who survived poison, who came out stronger, immune. Could the same happen to him? A reckless thought formed. He let the snake bite him again. But when the pain hit, he wondered if this was really a good idea. Should I have been more careful? He said to himself. But this time, the pain wasn't as bad as the first time. As he endured the pain, he stared at the snake. Even if his vision is reduced in the dark, the snake is still an exceptional hunter. It stealthily approaches its prey and sometimes even incapacitates its prey using sound. It only struck when necessary. It never wasted energy. And yet it wasn't greedy. It did not intimidate other creatures for no reason. It took only what it needed to survive. I guess the only ones with intelligence in this darkness are you and me. As he sat in the shadows, his eyes gleamed with a new intensity, a deep red like the snake's. Suddenly, a tremor. Stone rattled. A deep metallic clang echoed through the prison. The iron doors, all of them, were opening. Finally, Pyo Wol can leave his cell. A long corridor stretched before him, lined with cells like his own. He walked cautiously, noting something unsettling, the distance between the cells. Each one was spaced so far apart that the prisoners had never known they weren't alone. But this is far from the most striking fact. The overwhelming odor stung his nose. He followed it until he found the source. It's a corpse, lying in his cell, decomposing. The victim appears to be about his age. He wondered if it was the same in the other rooms. At the end of the hallway, he came to a large door, but it wasn't locked. Pushing it open, he stepped forward and found himself face to face with several other children. We've come to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Have a great day and see you in the next one.